Hello, everyone. This is Shannon Port, teacher of the Feminine Mysteries, founder of Art of the Feminine, and the head of the Divine Feminine Wisdom School. And I welcome you to the Holy Womanhood podcast. We are here today with our second episode in 2026. And the topic for our call today for this podcast is the divine feminine impulse. The divine feminine impulse. We will be looking at the archetypes. We're going to look at the archetypes of the coming lunar eclipse in Virgo because they are so beautiful. And then we will go into some of the esoteric codes around the divine feminine impulse, and we'll be looking at solar Venus. So I want to just say a few words about Remastered, because if you saw our first video called The Return of the Venus Mysteries, I announced that we have a new program at Art of the Feminine this year, which will launch on spring equinox in the north. The doors open on March 1st. But I sent out the information for that, and I got a lot of questions and a lot of interest. And so I'm going to take a few minutes to tell you what it is, because it goes along with this podcast. And so, of course, there is no pressure, but for those of you who may be interested in deeper study, I am re-releasing as a year-long mentorship the entire body of work that was once called the Art of the Feminine podcast from 2012. So let me just tell you what that is to clarify if anybody has any questions about what that actually is, because I talked about how I have remastered 65 audio recordings. So what those recordings are, they are a body of work that is original to this platform called the Divine Feminine Wisdom. And so it has the signature specifically of how we work here. The Divine Feminine, of course, is universal. It's cosmic, but we carry a very specific stream, and that body of work goes through each and every stage, starting at the very beginning up until the work that we're doing right now. So what it does is that it establishes a language. It establishes the foundational archetypal coding so that you have the ability to really digest what is being said here. I cannot tell you how many people listen to this work here and will tell me, I'm so drawn to your work and I've been listening to you for years, but I don't always actually understand what you're saying. I just know that I'm meant to be there. It's magnetic to me. I come because I hear that there is wisdom in this work, and there is. So what this body of work holds is that it starts at the very beginning, and it goes through in a way that it makes it really accessible. And so if you're interested in that, this is what it is. I didn't say this in the last video, so I'll let you know. There's 4 sections in it. It starts with what we call the Divine Feminine Wisdom teachings. There are 18 recordings that are about an hour and 15 minutes each that start at the very beginning and talk about all of the elements and aspects and archetypes of the divine feminine wisdom. Our work here is very focused on love relationships, creativity, art, fertility, conception, pregnancy, and birth, as well as what we call the Venusian mysteries and the esoteric feminine codes. So those first 18 recordings really set up the foundation of what this work is. And I just want to remind you that they have been audio engineered. They have been completely remastered. And so originally, they were call-in conference calls, but they have been put into studio sound So they just have a deeper resonance. They really, really, it really kind of brought it up to date with the sound that we expect to hear now when we tune into a podcast. And so that is what, that's what I'm really, really happy about and so, so excited about. The next 22 recordings in that body of work are the Major Arcana. So the work here is built on, in the past year, I've really, really made it publicly known. Whereas if you'd been working with me in the school or in any of my programs, you know that this work is Kabbalistic. And so the template that we are working with is called Divine Feminine Kabbalah, or the Goddess Kabbalah. And this is the cosmic template of Eve, of the body of Eve. And so Kabbalah is connected to the Tarot, the 22 archetypes of the Major Arcana, as well as all the astrological codes. And I will say, Holy Descent and the program that I just finished with women from all around the world. We worked from Samhain through the winter solstice. December 19th was our last day. We also carry a body of work called Holy Descent, which is the literal translation and transcribing of these feminine archetypes and what the lost Venusian superpowers are of the Holy Womanhood. The archetypes of this are so deep. We work with what we call the holy garments of Eve. We work with the restoration and the reclamation of the holy garments, which are these feminine energy or feminine energetic superpowers that activate the psychological aspect of each sphere, as well as all of the archetypal codes that are that make up this entire body, the entire spectrum of sound and light. So I say this because the Major Arcana is a huge part of that, and I have spent a an amount of time that I would be embarrassed to admit to working with the Arcana, working with the Tarot and the Major Arcana. This work goes so deep for me that it's truly my first language aside from speaking English. It is so deep and so developed that all of the when we interface with this world, which is what we'll be talking about when we talk about this lunar eclipse in Virgo, we have the ability to see so much deeper than we do. And what we were able to bring in here through the Major Arcana is a body of work that is so deep. So there's 22, probably about 30 hours of recording if working with the Major Arcana, the archetypes. And those of you who go way back with me, who are already signing up to do this year-long program, I want to say that people who have heard this work over and over are still returning to it and coming back to it to do the year-long program, because you can't overdo it. You learn through repetition, and each time you hear it at a higher frequency and are able to receive more of the energetic coding. So we have the Major Arcana, our 22 of those recordings, and then we have what's called the new human sexual paradigm. And so those of you who have done any mentorship with me, whether it's the Light Body Woman 3-month mentorship, whether it's Holy Descent, whether it's Light Body Yoga, Light Body Tantra, any of the courses we work with here know that it is very heavily focused on the healing of sexuality, the dragon current, the current of electrical force that vivifies everything from the highest worlds all the way into the depths of the forces of fire in the lower world, in the underworld, the what would be could even be called the demonic, the satanic, the Luciferian. This fire is on a spectrum, and the frequency of sexuality determines how we are using that fire, that electrical current, that serpentine force. We call it the serpentine force of the goddess, or the dragon current, or the solar feminine dragon goddess current. There are 17 recordings in this body of work that are very specific about healing sexuality on this planet, healing love relationships, and specifically for woman. Woman is a vessel of the dragon current. She is that force of nature. In other words, the archetype of woman is so closely related to this through what we call the Virgin Mary and the Mary Magdalene archetype. These are what we call Lilith and Eve. The woman has a role to play, a spiritual role to play in the regeneration of this world, working with the mother, the divine mother. That is so big. And that is what all of our work here is really about. So we go into all of those teachings, and then we finish with our finale is the Venus mysteries, specifically the Venusian mysteries. And so we finish that last little bit of podcast of recordings and transmissions of the art of the feminine transmissions is called the Alchemy of Venus. The Alchemy of Venus. And we talk all about the heart. We talk about the body of desire. We talk about the vital body, and we talk about their relationship and how Venus is truly, solar Venus is the redeemer of our age. And so we'll be talking about that a little bit. Okay. All of these four groups, and I'm giving a little time to this because it will let you know that this is the work that formed the Holy Womanhood podcast. The Holy Womanhood podcast is a fountain of this original work, and it's a stream that flows from the Divine Feminine Kabbalah and Eve's Tree of Life. In other words, this stream, this spoken word, this solar Venus comes from this work. It's a library. It truly is a library. And from this library was birthed the Inner Mystery School of Divine Love, a program we started in 2015, which is absolutely some of the deepest esoteric feminine mysteries around the Christ Sophia that can be received. And this coming year, starting in Remastered, I'm going to be going through a level of teaching some of the source of this information that I have not done before, and that's going to be part of the Remastered program. We're going to be working with some books and some lineage that is part of this lineage, and I'm really excited about that. After the Inner Mystery School, we had the 22 archetypes of divine consciousness. We have Light Body Yoga and Light Body Tantra. So that's it. Actually, it looks like I wrote a little bit. I didn't remember doing this, but I wrote this today. So if you are new to the divine feminine wisdom and our deep spiritual work and mission here at Art of the Feminine and on the Holy Womanhood podcast, Remastered is for you. Also, if you caught this work the first time around, going back to 2012, and remember just how powerful it was, know that it has only become more relevant with time. This is the test of a true body of spiritual work that is anchored into the world through the vessels of Sophia's wisdom on this earth, that it becomes more powerful with time. It doesn't weaken and become irrelevant. This work is gaining in its frequency. When I recently went back and audio engineered all of this myself, I listened to all of it and I was in awe, meaning just because I took it in at a whole new level. And it is for now. It is for this time. It came out in 2012, but those recordings are for now. They were received before all the chaos and all the noise in the spiritual world, all the noise in social media. It was a much it was a different time. Even going back to that era, there was a purity in how we were receiving spiritual information. And then we kind of tipped into a more noisy vibration with technology. And it's meant to be that way. But there is a quality to this work that comes where you can almost listen in a different way. And now that they're remastered into higher audio sound, it's really, really powerful. So this work starts at the very beginning and walks you through step by step the language, the symbols, the archetypes and codes. If you haven't guessed by now, our work is pure archetypal feminine wisdom. It's an esoteric level of the Christos mysteries that is cosmic. It's the cosmic feminine Christos mysteries. And so these symbols and codes and archetypes are truly of the divine feminine, because they came in through the heart and through the Venusian current. The Venusian current, the Venusian stream, the solar Venus stream is the new feminine mysteries, meaning I talked about, if you haven't seen our first episode in 2026, it's really good. It's up on Spotify. It's on YouTube. The audio podcast is available for the first time in many, many years. And I've got really good feedback about people loving hearing it in audio again. And so I'd still love to have you here with me on YouTube, but the audio podcast is special because there's something about listening that is so powerful. Listening is the feminine. It's the feminine that receives and takes in the sound current and then gives birth. And so the audio podcast on Spotify, I'm very excited about, under Holy Womanhood with Shannon Port. Okay, so you will come away with an entirely new language that is both scholarly as well as esoteric. So my work has been very scholarly because it's also been massive amounts of writing and reading and synthesizing knowledge and revisiting all the different occult schools and the spiritual lineages, because if this makes sense to you, that my soul has contact with from other times, or let's say other lifetimes, but then coming into my mission for this lifetime, which was to really birth it in the new iteration, the new feminine mysteries for this time. And so the mysteries keep evolving with each cycle, and we're getting ready to enter what we call the goddess epoch, the age of Sophia, or the age of the Holy Spirit. And we will talk about that. I have some really powerful things to say about this coming age. We sometimes call it the age of Venus, because it's really the resurrection of the divine feminine in a way that is mind-blowing. When we say patriarchy here in our work, we're not against men. We are not against the reality that we live in a 3D world and we need politics. We need a military. We need to live by the rules of the land of Caesar, and we need to honor those things and face all of them with courage. But we also have to really, really understand that the true higher feminine impulse has not been anchored in our world. It's anchored through this work, but it has to spread now all around the planet. There's a lot of fear around that. There's a lot of fear because of things like feminism. Let's say people who are more conservative and traditional would say that the evils of our times come from feminism. Feminism was very, very necessary. Absolutely necessary. I could not be here doing what I do here. And for those of you who have any memories of times past, this work would be the work of a heretic, the work of someone who would be condemned. Absolutely. So that we had to go through the stages of the underworld feminism, but now we're coming into divine feminism. And that is the impulse that will spread around the world, because it is going to be so powerful and so necessary, and it's already happening, but we are at the very, very beginning. So We call this work the feminine esoteric codes, and you've heard me say we call it the secret feminine doctrine because, and most people probably that are interested in occult and metaphysics have heard of this, the secret doctrine of Theosophy, and going back to Madame Blavatsky. This is the secret feminine doctrine. I actually have a connection to that group, which I keep saying I'm going to talk about. I haven't spoken about it publicly yet, but I have a bit of a tie to that group. But this time is the secret feminine doctrine. It is Isis unveiled, but it's truly, truly now the aspect of the female soul that involves the heart and the anchoring of new souls into the world through love, through the womb of woman, through the regeneration of the heart of the collective woman, the collective Eve, which must take place. The heart and the womb are connected. We have to regenerate the holy Sophia Grail of the heart in order to activate the divine feminine frequency in the womb of woman. And so that's where specifically my work around fertility comes in. This is, and I've already had a son, and my son was actually born in this frequency and comes from this frequency, but we're leaving this work, and my mission is to leave this work for the coming generations, even those who haven't been born yet, that we're getting ready to come into a much higher and elevated feminine frequency in our world. And we are going to understand the profundity of bringing a soul to the planet and the profundity of the union of the mother and the father, and just what happens, just how the tree of life is activated through some of this deeply spiritualizing of the dragon current. We live in a world with the lower frequency in culture, in art, in politics, in social media, in everything. But that is going to change. We are going to be coming truly holy, not even just the holy of religions, but holy as in the most sacred realization that we are the Vitruvian man and woman. We are the regeneration of the pentagram. We are the regeneration of the elements, and we are part of the light of this holy kingdom, but not just here, in the entire cosmos. So this is big. And this is what this work is about. Okay, we call this work the feminine esoteric. Let me see if there's anything I wanted to say about that. So this is the new feminine mysteries, and it's going to bring an awareness where we just, especially women, because women are going to lead this. It doesn't mean that women will be in control or that they will be taking anything from the glory of the collective atom or the collective male consciousness, but it happens inside the female body and then it ripples out into the planet. The female is in the image of the goddess. Woman is made in the image of the divine mother. The parts of the body of the female are so holy and divine. Every aspect of the female form corresponds to a cosmic power that exists in creation with the soul. So we are all the soul. Men, women, we're all part of it. We are the soul in matter. But the woman has a part of the soul that the male does not have, and that part has to be really deeply understood. It doesn't matter if you're in the maiden, mother, or crone stage. It does not matter if in this lifetime you have married, if you have had children. Even though those things are very, very deep in their power for initiation, all women, and I will say this again, loud and clear, all and men, because you're welcome here too. But I have to speak to the collective woman. All women are playing a part. We have much more than this one lifetime. We've all sounded different notes in the music of creation, but your consciousness, whether or not you have children, whether or not you're interested in men, women, whether or not you marry, you are still part of the collective consciousness of Eve, and the Holy Woman, regardless of what role they're playing in this lifetime, regardless of age, will vibrate at that frequency in order to be part of this new body that's being birthed through the divine feminine Kabbalah. We also call it the Kabbalah of woman, because it holds the specific codes of the woman and her powers that are being regenerated right now. So this work will be relevant to every great area of your life. I'm kind of jumping back now to tell you what Remastered is, but it's also important because it's allowing you to really understand where this work of this podcast has come from and how it has eventually ended up being called Holy Womanhood. We had the Goddess Report and we had the Art of the Feminine podcast, and the third and final realization is the Holy Womanhood podcast, and it's very, very sacred to use that language. It's very deep. It's archetypally aligned with the cosmic. So the things that the areas of your life that will be touched upon, if you should decide to enter into Remastered, are love, relationships, art, huge work in art right now, creativity, your wealth and your spiritual abundance, your feminine fertility, whether that is the fertility of the womb, the mind, or the heart, understanding the archetypes that you specifically carry in this lifetime. So one of the things we work with a lot is your personal archetypes. We work with the astrological codes and the Kabbalistic codes on the Tree of Life. This is your divine blueprint. So each and every person, and so if anyone who studied with me knows that how deep we go with this work. You cannot know enough about Venus. You cannot know enough about the moon and Jupiter and Mercury and Mars and Saturn and the sun. It is impossible to have too much information because these packets of energy are part of who we are and what we carried into the world in both the underworld zodiac as well as what exists above the zodiac in the higher planes, which governs over the zodiac, but which is where we work when we work Kabbalistically. The Kabbalah is the cosmic that works above the zodiac. And so one of the things that you get to do is really, really develop an intimate relationship of knowledge with what your soul has carried in this lifetime. And I cannot tell you how many doors open by learning and really beginning to understand that. To not just to learn it, but to understand it until it is your language. Because this language is, I know there's a lot of pop astrology and psychology and spirituality, and that's wonderful. It's meant to be, but this is the real deal. This goes to the core language of creation, the very core, meaning the original archetypal building blocks that are from what we call the divine plane, the highest emanation of Sophia. That's what these archetypes are, and they are alive, and they are connected to the angels and the archangels and all of the streams of the Elohim. These are the energetics of the soul and spirit. You will begin to understand your archetypes and become very, very curious about them. You will be introduced to the esoteric wisdom. This is also part of this podcast that we're doing here, so it's all the same. You will be introduced to the esoteric wisdom of the highest caliber. And we mean that. I wrote that down. This work is a fountain from the very depths of goddess wisdom to prepare you to teach and to share this mission. So those people who I also have a school called the Divine Feminine Wisdom School. Remastered is what we are calling the outer school, because it's the outer auric field of the inner nucleus. For those of you who are new to my work, I also have a year-long deep school, which is all of the programs that I have taught here over the years, the mentorships and the deep wisdom. But the outer school, which is being offered as remastered at a really, I cannot say this enough for what it is. If you're interested, don't miss out on it, because it is at even the price that it's offered is very not a lot for what it is. It's huge. So the outer school remastered is about remastering the planet, and remastering the planet with the divine feminine female initiates who speak this language, who really get it, who have integrated it on the cellular level, who have received the imprints of the archetypes, which is very rare. As someone who comes from this lineage, but also who has been studying and teaching and has a very good idea of what is out there in the world, there's all kinds of wonderful things, but there's a handful that go all the way to the core, meaning that really have the study, the scholarly wisdom, as well as the esoteric wisdom all in one place, and really have integrated those coordinates and can speak it all as one language. It's quite special, and that is what is in this work. Okay. It will connect you with the solar feminine mysteries of the earth. Huge. And this also goes for the podcast here. So I'm just going to go on and tell you this because I know a lot of people are interested. It will connect you with what we call the solar feminine mysteries of the earth. Huge. Gaia's mysteries. The Gaia's mysteries are the mysteries of the woman. The maiden, mother, and crone are the seasons of our very female mother planet. She is a divine mirror for each one of us. And it's so connected to a woman because of the fertility and the womb and her relationship to the sun, who is her husband. The Christic force that emanates from the sun is the husband of Magdalene as the earth. And we talk a lot about in my work how Magdalene is a personification of the actual Earth Mother. This will also teach you about astrology and tarot and goddess Kabbalah and help you to activate the entire cosmos. But most importantly, it's there to awaken the grail of your heart. The heart is the grail. I made a post recently. It was just a clip on my Instagram, which is Art of the Feminine. If you would love to have you follow me at Art of the Feminine on Instagram and Facebook. But I talked about how a lot of the male teachers, there's a lot of things coming out, have not done the alchemy of the heart. Some of them don't even realize it, and they do not understand the consciousness of the woman. The woman is a mystery, and her consciousness is veiled. You have to go in so deep with a woman to receive that gift from her and to truly understand the wealth and the gifts that the woman's consciousness carries to this world. This has not been understood. It has not been understood in art, in culture, although film and true art really is connected to the heart, but we are just getting started with what's coming. Art is meant to be the vehicle, and I'm thinking of all of my beautiful artists that I know in this community, of the mother's voice, but of her energy. And when your art is connected to your heart, which is connected to the cosmic, your art is a gift to the world, and it is held in the highest Akashic record, the one that's really high. True art makes it above the lower world and the lower astral plane and into the world, the land of the sun and the solar feminine, which is the higher astral world. Your art, when it carries that frequency, is recorded in that world for infinitely. It stays there as a great work that came through a human heart. We also talked about, to jump around, that's why we talked a little bit about technology and AI and the techno-feminine, that AI and, these chatbots and all of these things, they cannot replace a true vertical connection with the soul, the heart, the spirit, and the higher world. That needs a living, pulsing, breathing human heart, organic, that is connected to, dare I say, an egg and a sperm. It needs to have a divine the trinitized soul prism, which is one of the great teachings in Remastered and in the Art of the Feminine Transmissions, is what we are. We have to be a trinitized soul prism in order to hold the higher knowledge. Everything else will just be knowledge being repeated. A living transmission of knowledge is attached to a true human heart, and at other levels, a true human teacher or initiate who has been contacted or made contact with these higher beings. We talk about here the motherhood of light. That is who governs our work here, the mothers of the brothers. And that is how the transmission happens, from mouth to ear. When it's spoken through this alchemized heart, it carries the sound current that literally goes into you and is received through your heart, like the spermatoza, and with your arc field being the egg, the ovum of the virgin. That is why the power of the word is so very important. The logos, what we call the Sophia logos, the Christ logos, the verbum, the word that is attached to, what's another word to say? It's attached to the Christ force. It's attached to the Christ force, who is the mediator of all creation. We work here with the Christic mysteries. The Christ Sophia are the union of the soul and spirit. The living word from this work comes from the Christos Sophia. This is what I teach in the Inner Mystery School of Divine Love. Those were given as the mysteries of the Christ and the Sophia, and what we call the Christ Sophia Code. But that is I want to leave you with that. That is the importance of a real living transmission. All right. I want to talk a little bit about the electrical impulse. So today we have, Mars is square right now. Mars is at my descendant, squaring my sun, but I'm kind of joking. Mars is squaring Uranus and Taurus. It's also impacting my descendant and my sun, which is in my 10th house. So it's the midheaven. Mars is in Aquarius right now, I believe at 26 degrees. Will be 27 tomorrow, I believe, or it's about 26 or 27. It will square Uranus. So we're going to start to talk about some archetypes. Uranus, which is at the very end of its transit of Taurus. That's why things are really wild in our world right now. That's the solar eclipse in Aquarius on February 17th was square to Uranus. Please know that when I talk about astrology here, if you're hearing this a couple years into the future, it applies. We work with the archetypal language that is, it doesn't matter when you're hearing this in time and space, it carries the codes and the transmission of these archetypes. So Uranus is the electrical current, which can be the high electrical energy, the serpentine energy of the higher worlds, but it can also be the lowest of the low. And there's videos I've done where we talk about the pure demonic forces of Uranus when Uranus gets into the underworld. So Uranus is doing some work on Taurus right now because it's in the sign of Taurus, which is the earth. And so that electrical fire isn't only coming in high, it's coming in very low. So there's a lot of changes taking place in our world. The it's the in the archetypes, it's the Fool. It's key 0. And so it's the very beginning, it's the very highest of the high. It is the DNA that is about to be emitted from the mother's womb. Uranus carries the holy sacred fire, which is connected to the air principle as well, and connected to the breath. Our breath is so connected to this power, and it's the highest form of the Christ force, as it sits on the tree of life at the second sphere in Hokama, in wisdom. And also connected to the zodiac. There's so much more we could say. So right now, today, Mars is going over the point of the solar eclipse in Aquarius. It's getting right to that degree, and it's going to square Uranus, just like the solar eclipse did. So we are in times of great, great, great awakening. Mars is the tower in the tarot. It is key 16. Uranus is the Fool, key 0. So Mars is really impacting the energetic effects of Uranus right now. It won't be there for a long time, but it's going to pass in the next few days before we have the lunar eclipse in Virgo. So let me see what I want to talk a little bit. Okay. So Mars and Uranus are connected to the descending and ascending currents. We are working here in Holy Womanhood with the ascending currents. This stream is very pure. In order to ascend, the regeneration has to have taken place. Otherwise, it's going down. A lot of what's taking place in the world is still on the on the ride downward. In Holy Descent, we work with the descent of the goddess, but we go through the true descent with the archetypal superpowers of the Venusian force. And so even though we're descending, we're reclaiming as we go. And then we go through a whole process of regeneration that involves all of the work we do here when we come into this world. Sometimes we call it the underworld, but it's deep, deep, deep work. And as we complete that work, we begin the ascension process. That's as the Virgin, and that is the process that we're working with here for the glory of the Godhead and the Goddess on this planet Earth at this time, the regeneration of matter into the holy matter, and just a rebirth of the human soul in our world. So let's look at the lunar eclipse in Virgo. The lunar eclipse in Virgo will be on March 3rd. So let's look at this. This eclipse is just, there's something about it. So the Virgo Pisces axis, where the North Node and South Node are traveling right now, is so powerful for this work. If you haven't seen any of my work on Mars and the Mother Mary mysteries, or even the Magdalene mysteries, we talk a lot about Pisces, Lilith, Virgo, and that access. We go deep here. My North Node is in Pisces, and so it's been a big part of my spiritual training in this lifetime in the 8th house for the 8th house mysteries. So let's look at what's happening now. We're in between eclipses. We just had the solar eclipse in Aquarius, which was so activating the age of Aquarius. The lunar eclipse in Virgo will be 12 something Virgo. And Mercury will be retrograde in Pisces at 20 degrees, and Venus will be in Pisces as well. So let's look at this and how these eclipses are affecting our awakening consciousness right now. So it's a lunar eclipse, and it's in Virgo, the sign of the Virgin. Virgo is one of the zodiac signs that's not an animal. It is a woman, a goddess. It is the form that the cosmic feminine takes in her glory as the cosmic Sophia and the Virgin of Light, the Mother. So Virgo is the archetype of the Virgin Mary that gives birth to the Christ child, which is represented through Pisces and the deep, deep, deep womb. The Christ and the crucifixion of the Christ happen in the sign of Pisces. So with Venus and Mercury in the sign of Pisces opposite Virgo at this lunar eclipse, we're looking at Mercury. We're going to be doing a lot of tarot here because that's what we specialize in. Mercury is the magician in the tarot. Venus is the empress in the tarot. So Mercury is key 1, Venus is key 3. Both of these energies will be in the sign of Pisces, opposite the lunar, opposite the moon. So 1 and 3 together make 13 in the tarot. That is the death archetype. It is the archetype of the 8th house mysteries, which are what we talk about here all the time. And so those two energies and archetypes in Pisces, in the deep, deep underworld of Lilith, deep, deep, dark alchemy going on there in Pisces, while the Virgin, one of the archetypes that is elevated in the sign of Virgo is the high priestess. She is the soul. She is the Virgin. And so this lunar eclipse is happening in the sign of the moon, the sign of Mercury. Mercury rules Virgo. And there is an alchemy indeed happening with what's happening in Taurus, because they trine each other too. Virgo and Taurus trine each other with Uranus. And so, and Uranus being the energy of the electrical current that the Virgin brings in. She brings it in from the highest heights. And the Empress, Magdalene, Lilith, all of these archetypes that are Venusian in the underworld regenerate it because they have to carry the fallen serpent force in order to reconnect and become the Virgin. I hope this is making sense, but we're working with the Pisces and Virgo axis at this lunar eclipse on March 3rd, March 3. 3 is the number of Venus in the tarot. 3 is the number of the Empress. It's on, get this, it's on, this lunar eclipse falls on March 3rd at 3:33 Pacific time, where I am. It is loaded with threes. It's loaded with Venusian energy. And so even though it's happening in the sign of the Virgin and Virgo, the alchemy with Venus and Mercury right across is so potent. So that's why I just wanted to bring this in. I wanted you to just begin to get a flavor, a taste of how we can look at this and receive that transmission. The language that's happening now, this is in the zodiac, what we call the lower zodiac. However, when we see these archetypes and we're able to receive the higher coding, we regenerate it right there. That's why we need people who can read it, because when you can read it, you can regenerate it and it comes alive within you. Let me see. So the 13 is death. It's the archetype of Scorpio. This is what we call the alchemy of Christ, Sophia, the Empress, and the magician, Mercury and Venus, which are very, very potent on the tree of life and divine feminine Kabbalah. Like, I'm missing my holy descent women. We just had our final Q&A. Okay. So Virgo is ruled by a woman, a goddess, a virgin of light. the bride of Mercury, the bride of the Christ, the mother of I am. This is super important. So today, this is all related to the divine feminine impulse. The solar Venus is when we say I am in the 7 directions, we are activating the virgin of light in our field. We call it here the high priestess ritual or the light body priestess ritual. Anybody who has studied with me in mentorships and holy descent in anything has done the high priestess ritual. We have rituals for every single archetype. The high priestess ritual is the activation of the solar cross. She becomes Venus. She becomes Holy Venus in this activation. When we say here, thousands and thousands and thousands of times, I am before me. I am behind me. I am at my left. I am at my right. I am above me. I am below me. I am unto me. And we take a deep breath in. When we breathe in, we're activating the Christic force, that Uranus fire, but in its holy vortex. As we exhale, we say, I am, I know I am. I am, I know I am. I know I am. This prayer is Holy Venus, and Virgo gives birth to I am. Virgo is the hermit in the tarot, key 9. I've talked a lot about this in many videos, but 9 is the number of Mars. So this archetype is connected to Mars, meaning the Virgin is connected to Mars. If you come into Remastered, you'll hear we received something called a teaching around the fallen Mars force or the fallen Mars impulse, which is the fallen goddess energy, the fallen body of desire. And so we go so deeply into this, but this is the current of the Venusian mysteries, as well as the current of the Virgin of light. It is the Virgin that gives birth. When you look at the archetype of the hermit, and in some decks it's carrying the lantern with the Star of David, the 6-pointed star inside that lantern, that is I am inside the auric field, fully activated activated in the mind, the heart, and the womb. So our world is preparing to receive. The reason I wanted to go into this astrology today and talk about this lunar eclipse in Virgo is because our world is preparing to receive the divine feminine impulse. We don't fully have it yet. There's those of us that are carrying it, and we've had to really, when you really carry it, it's a challenge because it's not in the frequency of this world. This world doesn't reward that energy. This world is more apt to reward those working with the lower currents. It's just the way it is. It's not about being a victim, but the high current is not known or appreciated, especially the high feminine current. You could say that there are masters on this planet that hold the high current, but haven't necessarily completed, very rarely, the feminine mysteries. We talk about how they have to come through a woman and then they have to be given from the love of her heart to those in a male form in her life. It flows from a fountain, from her voice, her word, her touch, her love, her mothering, her partnership, her sisterhood. All of those things are a source of what we call, the divine feminine impulse, and it's real. The restoration of the lost feminine mysteries is what we are working with here. It is very clear to those who have eyes to see that this knowledge has been hidden, replaced, renamed, and even desecrated, not only in our lives, but in the culture itself. It was removed. Religions hold pieces of her wisdom, deeply so, but they have largely handled the revelations. Revelation is the star. It's Aquarius, and we're coming into this age of Sophia, and blocked them. There was a great fear that if this knowledge was released in the way it's supposed to be released through the females and the female teachers, that it would somehow take away from the power of these established institutions. Now, it has to be said that the female shadow craves materialism. The feminine is connected to fame, materialism. The male shadow is more about power, control, and pleasure, either the abundance of it or the repressing of it. So the male deals with power. The female deals with understanding the frequency of matter. And so the shadow side of the moon can be overabundance of materialism and just the lust to have more and to be, it's in all our fairy tales, and to be, there's nothing wrong with fame. I want to be really clear, but the kind of fame that is of the lower frequency, that's a feminine shadow. So the male culture that held tight to this work wanted so badly to hold the structure of it and to not let the dam break, to let the waters come in with the new mysteries. But when the waters are ready to come, it won't be stopped. And so what we're doing right now is we're preparing for that on the entire planet. We have streams. There are a few streams around the planet that are beginning to really relate what that means, what that will mean for all of us. So I want to go back to one thing. When I say that this frequency isn't appreciated, not everyone can hear it. And those people who had to fight to hold it had to really fight on levels that are almost unspeakable. And we talked about that in the Return of the Venus Mysteries. When you're holden to not let go of it because you get seduced with every last thing that would make you think, well, that would be good and a little bit easier. But something inside you knows that you cannot let go, and you've agreed to carry it. Virgo, okay. This crucial wisdom is needed. Okay, here we love culture. We talk about art all the time. We love culture. We respect religion. We have full respect for religion and politics on this planet. We say we are an ascending current. Only the descending currents are in takedown mode. We need descending currents, but this work here is an ascending and a balancing current. It's a harmonizing current, but it's also doing the work of the ascension, the resurrection of Venus. And so when you're working with the ascending current, there's certain things you can't touch. It's just not allowed. You've already done that going down. And so in other words, we're not here to take anything out, even with our power of our word to put it down so greatly. We're very careful about even criticism, because when we criticism, we go into the descending current. It's just part of the way the word works. So we say that we have love for all souls who seek the divine, but crucial wisdom is needed to elevate human consciousness and to elevate the souls of human beings and to raise the frequency into what we call the divine feminine frequency. Virgo, the goddess, is the critic. She is the great separator of the wheat and the chaff. So if any of you are Virgos, the sign Virgo is a critic and is constantly criticizing and looking at something and saying, like, how can this thing be better? How can it be more beautiful? How can it be more harmonized? How can it be connected to I am? She is the highest power of doing that work and of recognizing what stays and what goes, what is truth and what is just man-made gibberish. There's a lot of A lot of laws and a lot of ideas that we come up with are coming from a lower frequency, and it's okay. But when you awaken the virgin, you start to be able to hear it. You hear the truth, and you start to be able to understand what's a good idea and what is not. And some of the things that come out of politics, our current culture, our culture wars, some of these things that come out are just not aligned with the cosmic laws. And humans come to this planet to make all kinds of mistakes. But when you are in the ascending current, you're carrying the authority to say, no, this is my moral code. I look at everything that's out there, but I know this is my moral code. Yes, politics of the right and left, everyone's afraid of each other, and there's some good ideas on this side, some on this side, and some horrible on each side. The sovereign agency of the awakened divine feminine knows her own moral code. She cannot be owned by a name. She cannot fall under one umbrella completely and give her authority and her agency to that title. It doesn't mean that she might not value and honor certain aspects of it, but a title is very limiting when it is coming from those who haven't yet been baptized in the higher wisdom. And again, there's no criticism of that because human beings are doing what they're supposed to be doing. But this is an exciting time where we're starting to say, oh, yes, okay. Yeah, thank goodness. We can see that. We can also understand the power of the human body and how it is connected to the cosmos, and how if we want to lock ourselves in the underworld, we can throw all that away. We can become completely transhumanistic robot beings that are run by a central data center that tells us everything what to do. But that's not what we're here for. That's not this work. We are here for the beautiful advancement of technology, but alongside the resurrection of the goddess on our planet Earth, the feminine Christic force. So a true initiate cannot enter the temple of Isis in the higher plane until she has faced the great solar feminine initiation, the higher mind of the virgin, her alchemical bath in the great field of I am. That prayer I am is so potent. It is so potent. Use it. And use it as the solar Venus prayer. I did some videos in the summer of 2024. One I think is called Solar Venus. We talk a lot about that. Some of the videos on the esoteric feminine codes are really loaded, really, really deep with the wisdom, and they're all time-stamped. The womb of which so I am is the field. It's the womb. Once you have I am truly awake as the Virgin Mother, you have restored the power of the creative imagination. Remember, I am is Aries, a fire sign, and also Leo. In Leo, I am is the heart, which is the creative imagination. In Aries, I am is the mind. It's the fire of the mind. So this field that everything arises out of is I am. We're creating from a lower field. When we begin to create with I am, meaning our creations, our desires are attached to the Christ force, we have regenerated the creative imagination. We have brought the power of the female womb, all of them, into a new alignment with the cosmic, and we truly become the co-creators with the divine Sophia and with the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. This is the activation of the Trinity in the heart, the triple flame, which is the creative birther of all that is. We will birth the new world when we reclaim that, the I am of the Mother. The compromised womb sells out for a much lower knowledge. So the compromised womb, here we're talking about not necessarily the womb of woman, but which is under that spell. the womb of consciousness is the soul and is the womb. When some of the consciousness practices that are just about this random non-construct, we talked about that God is not a construct, God is a construct. The consciousness movements that only see consciousness as a way to get things, meaning like it has no purpose, it has no higher meaning. The true consciousness is the soul. It is a living, breathing woman. The spirit is known as the living, breathing Adam, the living, breathing man, meaning the fire and the water principle. Now, the soul, as the solar feminine, also becomes the fire principle, and the fire principle also becomes the water principle. And in their union, they are the Christ Sophia. They are the divine heavenly marriage that merges the earth and the sun and that raises the earth up as the risen Venusian principle into the realms of Venus. The cosmic laws of Sophia are written in nature. The religion of nature, the true form of paganism, holds the religion of the goddess and all of her coding. That's what one of the things we're doing in Remastered is we're having a real ritual ceremony on both equinoxes, if you're in for a year, both solstices, where we use the archetypal codes, where we use those codes, and where we go through a ritual that helps us to be in attunement with where we're at in this process in our global collective awakening. Meaning when you go through that and you anchor rituals and archetypes in that way, which is what we'll be doing, you own it. You're a living, breathing book of life, the book of nature, which is what the solstices and rituals activate. They activate the land of Sophia. They activate the Garden of Eden on earth. So these laws are written in nature and in the stars. We often talk about how they're above, they are below, and they are in our heart. That's the threefold soul, the cosmic laws of above, the laws of the heart, and the laws of matter itself are the trinity necessary for the divine feminine activation. That's why we don't turn away from Mother Earth. Her patterning, the Sophionic patterning, holds the music of the Christ Sophia and our planet. Back, I think it was in 2012 or 13, I wrote this piece called The Sound of an Awakening Planet. It was about the music of the goddess and the Christ Sophia and how it's connected to the trinitized heart prism, the cosmic heart, as well as the heart in the core of our earth. This is truly what we're talking about here, the music of Christ Sophia. The true feminine mysteries were degraded and lost to our world. They were distorted, so much so that woman herself lost them. She forgot who she was, but no longer. It's all coming back. Okay. So let me just see where I'm at. I'm going to close pretty soon. I have a lot more I can say, but you'll just have to come back for the next episode. So this is what I want to say about the feminine Christ and the Christ and the divine feminine impulse returning to our planet. We are this lineage. Sometimes we refer to it as the temple of Isis and her solar feminine initiates. In the Christ mysteries, the Master Jesus speaks of the return of the mother. And as the Holy Spirit descending into his apostles and bringing the gift of the word and healing. So Christ talks about how he will bring in the Holy Spirit. This is the power of the mother. And then also Christ in the Christ mysteries on the cross says, "Son, behold your mother." He reveals that the mother is returning, and it is through the archetype of the crucifixion and the resurrection, which is what we perform in holy descent as the female, that the mother returns. And this is why we're going to talk about why. This is really deep, And I think I will begin to close out with this. And this is why Magdalene and Yeshua are so important as a team. When the Christ is incarnated on our planet, the etheric energy is the energy of the mother, and even the energy in the underworld of the mother. But when the male Christ is heightened and walks this planet, the female Christ is above in the etheric plane. But as the mysteries themselves, as the scriptures themselves tell us, when it's time for Christ to die, be reborn, and ascend, he gives to us the Mother and the Holy Spirit. He lets it be known that we are entering the age of the divine feminine. And in the mystic teachings, he makes Magdalene the church. Magdalene is the church, meaning she is the chalice to hold the new wine. It is the feminine consciousness. And so Magdalene is prepared through association with Christ, but she comes to hold the Venusian force, both the force that had to be Lilith. That's why in her archetype, she's the prostitute. Not that the Magdalene really was a prostitute, but the archetype of the prostitute is very important because she carries Lilith. And in order to fully understand that she's carrying that Uranus lower fire, she carries the serpent force that is connected to Lilith. Through the Christ, the Master Jesus, in there's various different versions, removing the 7 demons or purifying the 7 chakras and revealing the 7 holy seals of the Church of Magdalene. Magdalene is regenerated. At the time that the Christ leaves the planet, it is Magdalene who becomes the church. For those who have ears to hear, they are not in competition with each other. They work together. Imagine that we've stripped certain things. In fact, I think I had written this down. I've said this before, but okay. The idea that we remove the function that creates life to become holy is absurd, if not incredibly damaging to the feminine, who must engage with the dragon current in order to conceive a child or to activate her inner heart chamber, to activate the inner heart chamber as well. So what this means, and we've talked about how the virgin was literalized and the true process of that alchemy was removed, which is for another time. It's for another episode. We will go deeply into it. The virgin is the archetype in alchemy that represents the egg or the vital body, the pure field of divine potential, that ovum of I am, which is what we activate when we say I am in the 7 directions. We're creating the vital body with the Venus power, the Magdalene awakened at the very core, the solar feminine. The pure field of divine potential that is in the solar cross of the high priestess that holds all of the DNA codes, all of the archetypal packets of information. The mother is anything but a virgin. Look inside the heart to know the true frequency of woman. The seals of alchemy require a certain engaging with the serpent force. Not in the old times, in the old male lineages, we avoided it to ascend and purify. Now we do the opposite. We go through it. The feminine mysteries of the 8th house, the 8th house mysteries that we talk about, that are the mysteries, the new feminine mysteries of this work, are about walking through it, not avoiding it. And that's why the work of the heart in love relationships is so powerful. Whether you hold a friendship relationship, a deep, deep soulmate relationship, or a contract with another soul to raise children or to be together, or if you're working outside of marriage, which is so important to say, because Many, many, many women at this time are. There's a reason for it. It has to do with where we're at. And it has to do with also awakening the intellectual feminine. And so woman had to break away from the bonds of being only associated with her ability to birth children and to be submissive to the masculine. There had to be a cycle of real feminism where women took back their intellectual properties and became a force on this planet of thinking with the female vehicle. It didn't mean that they have to become masculine, but it meant they were meant to be able to have a voice intellectually. The woman was meant to awaken her mind, and the male is meant to awaken his heart. So that being said, the etheric Christ now is working upon all of the Holy Womanhood. Just know that we receive the Christic rays of the sun into our heart. I just want to finish with this. This is such a holy time. This work is real. It's a very noisy world out there, and I can tell you it's easy to get distracted, but if you're called to it, it's real. And there's a real process, there's real contemplation and study and really becoming familiar with it that will help transmute some of the lower forces and bring you into a frequency where it's like bliss just to hear the wisdom. It's like drinking from the most pure crystalline fountain that's coming right from heaven, and the earth becomes so alive to you. That's the Christ in the etheric plane giving to the feminine, giving to Magdalene right now. And it is on where we face a lot of challenges with technology. We face a lot of challenges with the return of the Atlantean Roman Empire. Not that we're against everybody, but the frequency with which things are going forward with thunder needs to be tempered by the divine feminine wisdom and the return of the feminine mysteries on our planet Earth. So a reminder, I have so much more, but I'm going to close because I don't want these podcasts to be so long. I want to close with one reading, and this is it. Okay. This is from a Gnostic Eucharist. It is so powerful. It's from the Logos speaking of Sophia. And the Logos said, "They say I came for all, but in truth, I came for her who came for all. For it had come to pass that there were those who had lost their way, and lacking in spark, divine spark, could not return to the fullness, the pleroma. Seeing this, she came unto them, giving her life to the depths of matter. And in truth, she did suffer and became blind. But our Father, sensing her anguish, sent me forth, being of him, so that she might see, and we be as one again. Though they see it not, it is she, the tender mother of mercy, who is the great Redeemer." The Logos, being the Christ, says, "They say I came for all, but in truth, I came for her who came for all. For it had come to pass that there were those who had lost their way and lacking in spark could not return to the fullness, the tree. Seeing this, she came unto them, giving her life to the depths of matter, the descent. And in truth, she suffered because she became blind." So we talk about that. This is the story of the Piece de Sophia. The goddess lost her superpowers. She had to become blind. She came in to regenerate the human soul. The Divine Mother came in, and now it is the Son that comes for the bride to regenerate her, that they become one. And that she is able to return. That is the work of the immortal body, the resurrection body of the Christ Sophia. So I want all of you to know, and I'm speaking to men, women, all of you listening, young and old. As a woman, when I read that, something happens to me. They say I came for all, but I came for her. The soul is the her, and he's the spirit. But this is truly to affirm and validate the work of the divine feminine and on our planet right now, and to know that the Christ force is working through to resurrect this work, that it will be known around the world and in the kingdom, and that her image will be resurrected. And we will be in her image, the image of the soul, and in the image of the Christ Sophia, which is the holy union, the divine marriage, the alchemical marriage of soul and spirit. And so this is Shannon Port closing out our second episode in 2026, the return of the divine feminine impulse. The divine feminine impulse is the return of our memory. The soul is mem, memory. The Hebrew letter is mem. It's the water principle. And we are regaining our memory. That's what our Akashic field is. And that's what our I am restores, so that we can do the holy alchemy. This is the time. And so I invite you to stay with us in the Holy Womanhood podcast. We're only going to go deeper and deeper. And I will have a link underneath wherever the podcast is to look at Remastered. And I would love to see you. It's a year-long program where you get access to all these 65 recordings that I went over in the beginning. You get to go through them in this new quality and then meet with me twice a month for active feminine activations, for lectures, a book club. We're going through the most spiritual books I know, which I never really talk about in my public videos. And we'll be doing rituals for the equinox and solstices and many, many more. And so that being said, thank you for being here. And I look forward to hearing from all of you. If you're on YouTube, you can leave comments. There's actually comments on Spotify too. And I look forward to your comments. I will see you next time, and have a really blessed lunar eclipse on March 3rd.